Hey, 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 good morning, everyone. Grace and peace. My name is Paul Dezay, and welcome to Find the Intersection. Today is Wednesday, which means we're going to be talking about the Old Testament passage. And the Old Testament passage for this week is Isaiah 55, verses 1 to 9. Isaiah 55, 1 to 9. I encourage you to check out that passage, read it through in a couple translations, come back here, and let's have a conversation. So I'll share my thoughts, and I ask you to share your thoughts in the comments so that we can learn from one another. So Isaiah 55, the context of this particular passage. Isaiah chapters 40 to 55 are considered by most theologians as the second section of Isaiah, or second Isaiah. And so this particular chapter in Isaiah is the closing. It's the last chapter in that second section. The second section is often called the words of comfort. 40 to 55 are, or the book of comfort. The book of comfort, the words of comfort are those chapters. And they deal with exile, hope of Messiah. And one of the themes within that particular section, and it's important for this context today, is that a lot of people will refer to this as the journey through the wilderness. So from chapters 40 to 55 of Isaiah, it's the journey through the wilderness. All right, so let's jump in. Three things that stood out to me. Number one is this idea of a banquet. And so we see in this passage an invitation that's open to everyone, right? So all people, and it's an invitation to water and food that is free. And the only requirement is that of having thirst and hunger. And then in this passage, Isaiah chastises people who spend money on things that aren't necessary, and extravagances are mocked, but listening to God is truly what matters. So there's this invitation to a banquet that's open to everybody. So that's the first thing that stood out to me. The second thing, which continues a theme through this week, of repentance. And as we talked about on Monday in the gospel passage, repentance means to change the way that you think, changing directions, but changing your mindset, right? And so in verses 6 to 9, there is a call to seek the Lord. It's seek the Lord while he still can be found. Invitation to everyone, just like the banquet. There's an invitation to everyone to seek the Lord, but the time is limited. So when Isaiah says, while he can still be found, there's an invitation that has a time limit. So God is patient, but the decision to seek him needs to be made. It's a decision that has a sense of urgency behind it. So this idea of repentance, coming to the Lord, seeking him, turning from our own ways, is a theme that runs through this particular passage, which brings me to the third thing that jumped out to me as I read this passage, was those last couple of verses 8 and 9. It says, my thoughts are nothing like your thoughts. My ways are far beyond anything that you can imagine. And I typically hear that verse talked about in the sense of when God does something that we don't understand. We typically throw this out, or God does something that we don't like. It's his decision is different than our decision, so we'll quote this verse. But really, I think when you're taking a look at Isaiah and the story of God, like a big picture snapshot, I think that God's ways are different than our ways. But oftentimes our ways, when we look at the ways of the world, it's kind of like this machine of retaliation, of vengeance. That's what the world operates, and we have this temptation to fall into that trap of when things don't go our way, we try to get back at people, blame people. We hold on to bitterness and grudges, and that leads to violence. And that's what our world is all about. It's about violence. It's about conquest. It's about power. And so God's ways are different. And we see that on the cross, where the Messiah is crucified out of love and doesn't strike back, doesn't retaliate against those that are hurting him. His ways are different. It's the ways of love. And so for us, we have to identify whether we kind of follow into the ways of the world, this machine of retaliation and vengeance, which leads to violence, or do we operate according to the ways of the Lord, which is so much different, and that is the way of love. And understanding that the cross is like a wrench that's thrown into this machine that runs the world of vengeance and violence, right? So that's what stood out to me. My application for today is that idea of seeking the Lord while he still may be found. And during this Lenten season, time during the wilderness, there is water and food that are free available to me. As I hunger and thirst for God, I will find him, and my thirst will be quenched, and I'll receive the food that is necessary for nutrition and sustenance. So that is what I got today. So what did you find in this passage? I think it's awesome. Awesome passage today in Isaiah chapter 55, verses 1-9. Share your thoughts, if you would, in the comments, and I will see you tomorrow as we talk about the Psalm. Have a great day, everybody. Grace and peace.